Aloha, it's your boy Neglected Gundam, and today we'll be looking at the Master Grade Aegis Gundam. I am very excited about this build as it is a very unique mobile suit. I started this project about 2 years ago, January 2024. I took it apart, put the pieces on the sticks, and primed it, and there it sat for about 2 years. So I really want to complete this project, and without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back, and I want to say I'm happy to have you here today. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Master Grade Aegis Gundam, but before we do that, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing as it helps out the channel. The first thing I want to say is that I was drawn to this mobile suit by its unique design. And as you can see from the side of the box here, this mobile suit does transform. If you've ever watched Gundam Seed, or you've seen this mobile suit, you know that it has like a squid mode, and it's such a weird transformation. I don't think I'll ever transform it when it's painted, but I thought that was pretty unique as well. And speaking of painting the mobile suit, I really was drawn to the color of this one. I like the red aesthetic of it, however I wanted to go a little more pink. Although I did want to keep that red color as well, so I kept the outsides of the pieces that red, and then on the inside I focused on putting pink there. So knowing what type of paint job I wanted for this suit, that got me thinking, and normally I'll put a black pre-shade around the parts and then I'll fill it in with whatever color I want, but instead of that black, this process is going to have me put a red pre-shade first and then the pink, and that gets me excited to try something new. With every mobile suit that I've never built before, I like to snap it up just to see what I'm dealing with before I give it the paint job. With this suit I'm glad I did because I saw some seam lines that I wanted to take out. These seam lines were in a very unique spot where you'd have to build up part of the mobile suit to take the seam line out, and that means that it would be quite a challenge when painting it. The tools that I found online actually helped me transform these seam lines into panel lines. This is Immature Uncle, and it is the line tool B25, and there's also a B23. The B23 tool is for creating a more narrow seam line, and the B25 is a little wider. That being said, I used the B25 for this project because it's a 1/100th, and I figured that the panel line would be a little bit wider. The B23 is good for a 1/144th kit. When creating your panel lines, I find that it's good to do 5 to 7 passes. On your first couple passes, you want to start off light, and then progressively get heavier during your final passes. Keep in mind that I did all of this work before I owned the on-side chisel set, which I recommend using the chisel set to finish up your panel line. The panel lines that I created were going to be on the backpack, the side thrusters, and the gun. Ultimately, the only seam line that I took out was on the head, but you'll see more on that later in the video. Before I owned all these other airbrushes that you see, this airbrush I inherited from my father, and it's been my main workhorse for the last 2 years now. Now, after all the research that I've done online, the best I can tell is that it's a master airbrush, and it's mainly for cake decorating and nail technicians. I'm telling you this because during this build, I actually broke this brush. As I was trying to tighten the nozzle back on, that nozzle broke away from the threads, and so it rendered the nozzle useless. So that's why I have more specific model brushes that are intermediate and more professional. But back to the video at hand, you will see that I'm using the stir stick here to draw out the drops of paint from the Tamiya jars. I like to record my paint mixes in the drops that I use, so I use a drop count and not necessarily a percentage. So this is how I get the drops, and this is what it looks like. Now I have moved away from mixing the paints in the cup with the stir stick. If you are going to do that, however, I recommend that you put the thinner in first and then the paints. And when you're ready to start spraying, I recommend that you clear out the front of that chamber. Just give it a good spray until you get to the paint that you mixed. As I'm learning and growing in this hobby, I find that a better way to mix your paint is either going to be in a separate cup, or if you are going to mix in the cup for the gun, use the bubble back method. And for that method, you're still going to want to put thinner in the cup first before you add your paints. Alright, so right here, you'll see that I have a base coat of pink, and I am applying the pre-shade of red, and then I'll come back in and I'll do the pink in the middle. And what I've learned from this is I believe that the main color gets a little bit more pronounced and it cuts down on that pre-shade. So I think with my next seed project, what I'm going to do is start with that base coat, and then I'm going to put the first coat, the main color, completely down over the entire piece, and then I'll do a post shade instead of the pre-shade. So I'll do a post shade of whatever that darker color is. And now that I have more detail oriented brushes, I believe I'm going to be able to get that line to be a little more precise. So I think this was a great experiment for me to try, and going forward I think I've learned what I want to do for the future, and I'm really excited to see how that comes out as well. Speaking of learning and growing in this hobby, I am really excited to see where this next season takes me. I am going to be focusing on the paint to thinner ratios, the needle sizes that I'm using, and also how much PSI I'm using to push the air through the airbrushes. Now that I have better airbrushes, I'm really excited to learn more about those processes. This is the Chinese-made airbrush from Gallery. It is a part of their premium series, and this is the Mobius 0.3. I would say this brush is great for general application of paint. It's for when you don't need those lines to be too precise, you just want a nice general application of paint. I would recommend this brush for someone who's a beginner to intermediate level painter. It is a nice brush and it is very easy to clean. It does have a threadless nozzle system that sits on the front. That is very nice for when you want to take that needle out. And speaking of Gallery, I went ahead and bought from their Kaleido Colorworks, I bought their metallic paint set. These colors have been an absolute game changer. I really like them a lot. I didn't think you could hand brush them, but I gave it a shot anyways. And I may have done it wrong by using Mr. Color Leveling Thinner 400. That's not really the thinner you want to use with these paints. The one that you would want to use would be more the retarder thinner from Kaleido, and that's going to slow down your drying times and it's going to help that paint level out. But for all intents and purposes, this Mr. Color Leveling Thinner did work. I don't think I'll be using that system again, however. And when I say these colors are a game changer, well, I mean that for me because I've been using Tamiya. I'm not sure what you use, it might not be a game changer for you, but I've been using Tamiya, and the metallic in those paints, the flakes that they use are a little bit larger, so when you look at it in the completed project, it looks a little grainy for my taste. So when I switched over to this Kaleido Colorworks metallic set, man, the metallic paints that they use is so fine. I love it because it gives a nice smooth feel to the paint when it's finished. Now the paints from Kaleido Colorworks is going to be more of an airbrush paint. You're going to want to airbrush it for the best results. I have seen online where people say you can't hand paint with it. However, I have been able to get great results with it. You just have to remember to thin it down and give it multiple coats, and then it will go on very nice. I was able to do the metallic colors in this way, and then also since then I have bought their main color lineups. I think there's like 3 sets. I bought those as well, and I used those colors to paint the minifigures. I did hand brush those as well, and I have to say all the paints I was able to hand brush with. I am very impressed. Now, I'm not going to focus too long in this video of the decaling process. Just know for this project I used the decals that came with the suit, third-party water slides, and also the dry transfer decals as well. Okay, remember earlier in the video when I said that there was a seam line that I took out of the head? Well, I ended up running into a problem. There's this little nub on the red piece that the white piece snaps in around it to hold it together. I didn't take that part into account when I took out the seam line, so what I ended up doing was taking the God hands and just clipping that piece off. And so when I clipped it, I tried to create a little ledge here that once you put it in, it kind of locks it in place. But just to be on the safe side, I glued it anyways. And now all that's left is really just to finish up with 2 varnish coats. The first varnish coat I did was a gloss, and then I finished up with a matte. Alright, now that we're almost done with this project, there's only a couple things I didn't videotape, and that's going to be me painting the minifigures, and then also panel lining as well. So about 98% of those panel lines, I use the Micron Sakura marker. That's going to be the .005 tip. The only other thing for this video and the build that I didn't tell you was that for the inner frame, I went ahead and did my usual forced shading on that with the metallic gunmetal from Tamiya, and then I sprayed that in a gloss varnish and left that gloss. And with that, that ends the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you stayed through the whole video, I really appreciate it. Please give it a like, comment on the video, as I will comment back to you. And I hope to see you come along on this journey with us, as we do have a lot of builds to go in the future. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. Keep building. And until next time, I hope you don't feel that neglected now.
We do it now. We do